everyone, and welcome back to the Travel and Tourism Podcast, my first season. My guest today worked for Club Med from 1990 to 1999 and was a set designer, choreographer, and chief of animation. He met John Shelley in New York City on an elevator, and John gave him his business card. 6 months later, my guest called him and was in a village less than a week later. I wish it was that easy for me, but hey, please help me welcome the one and only Graham Maxwell. Hey, Graham, how are you?
How are you?
Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I must have sent out, I think for a period of 8 months, I sent out resumes, okay? And I didn't get a call. So I'm just curious, like, what were you doing in New York that you met John Shelley on an elevator? Let's start there if we can.
Well, at the time, I was production manager for a university north of Toronto, and it was their reading week, and I decided to get in on the half price deal to come to New York for the week. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll go, whatever. Saw some shows, and it was a crappy Friday morning. And I was walking down the street and I saw this huge billboard with sand and a couple of footprints in the sand. And I thought, God, that would be the best place to be at this time of the year, because it was crappy in New York at the time. And I just happened to be at the boutique, which was the Club Med boutique, which was a couple of blocks away from the Club Med corporate office. And I walked in there, I was looking at a brochure, and a girl said to me, "Oh, so what are you looking for?" I said, "Oh, I'm just perusing." And she says, "Oh, what kind of work do you do?" And I told her, and she says, "Oh, well, why don't you go to the Club Med office?" And I said, "Where's that?" She says, 2 blocks away. So I went, "Oh, okay." So I went to the Club Med office, and while I was on the elevator up, this guy looks over at me and he goes, "So what kind of work do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a production designer, whatever." And he says, "Oh, I work for Club Med. When could you leave?" And I sort of said, "What?" He said, "When can you leave?" And I said, "Well, I'm working now." And I said, "I can't go on vacation." He says, "No, not on vacation, to work." And I said, "Oh, well, I can't right now because I've got this thing." He says, "Well, here's my business card." And I looked at it, it was John Shelley. Sure enough, I got upstairs and I said, "Hi, I'm here to see somebody for entertainment." And she says, "John Shelley." And I said, "I think I just met him on the elevator." So anyway, I had a little chat with him in his office, got back home, and I didn't think a thing about it. All of a sudden, about a week later, we got a call, and the theater department was being closed at the university. So I decided this was now, it was a week later, but then I thought, well, nothing of it. I thought, well, I'll get some more work and whatever. I was working at another theater, and the work finished in August, and I was cleaning up my apartment and I found his business card. So I thought, well, I'm going to call John Shelley. I called him. He remembered who I was and said, "When can you leave?" And I said, "Well, you tell me." He says, "How about Saturday?" This was a Monday. So I went, "Oh, okay." So I sublet my apartment, and on that Saturday, I got on a flight and went to St. Lucia.
Wow. So all this started with you seeing an ad, correct?
Yeah.
I wonder if Club Med realizes like these ads were meant for GMs or potential GMs, but so many XGOs cite the ad, whether it was on TV or in a newspaper or a billboard. So
It was a great ad. It was a great ad. And when you're from Canada in winter with 2 feet of snow, that is the ideal place to be.
That's right. So it's kind of like a toss up between St. Lucia or Toronto in the winter, St. Lucia.
I think I'll take St. Lucia. And I thought it was 6 months from the day I left. Little did I know that I was there for 2 months, and then they sent me home, and then I got a Luthra after that.
That's right. Now your chief of village, I think, was the first French Canadian chief of village, Pierre Letellier Gagnon.
Yeah.
So what do you remember? Were you all wide eyed and Club Med culture shocked when you got to St. Lucia?
I not to be negative, but I couldn't stand it for about 2 weeks. I thought, this is just a joke. Nobody talks to me. Nobody does whatever. It's because I came in at the end of their season, and I don't think they could give it a crap about any new people who were coming in because they were looking for their next season. But what was interesting was who was in that village. That when I got to that village, Hammer was there as chief of not chief of sports, he was land sports, I think. Jenner was there. Hansel Moss was chief of sports. Angie Boucher was aerobics. You name it. Scott DePalma was on circus with Batman. You name it. Like every name that I heard over the next 10 years was in that village.
What was Angie Boucher like in 1990?
She was a bundle of energy. And honestly, if it wasn't for Angie, I would have left Club Med because we went for a long walk on the beach one day. I didn't know her very well, but she was very, very hospitable, and she liked to meet everybody who was coming in. Went for a long walk on the beach, and she sort of gave me the roadmap to how Club Med works. Who does what happens when, how to get along the best with the chief of village, which people in the team are you going to get the most out of if you get along with them and stuff like that. And she, with that walk, by the time we got back to the village, I was gung-ho. And from that point on, I was hooked.
Okay, just a quick question. Now, when they sent you to St. Lucia, what was your initial job? Were you set designer?
I was a set designer. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I in your pre-interview, or when you filled out some of your notes, you said that you took a look around, you saw what other people were doing. Now, you wanted to become a choreographer, correct?
Well, at the time, I didn't know how Club Med animation worked.
Okay.
But because of my background, I was a production manager, but I also directed. So when I got to the village, it said animation. And at first, I thought animation was, they do cartooning here? Very strange. And then she, of course, explained everything to me because it was the change of season. Everybody there was a replacement in the animation team. And there was one point where we were I think we were in October, maybe the very beginning of October, and Pierre Letellier Gagnon was leaving for his next village. And he told us that a big French group was coming in, and we had no shows at that point. We were doing cabarets and whatnot. We had to put together a feather show. So that meant I had to do a brand new set. There were brand new costumes, this, that, whatever. We did it once at the end of the season, but that hooked me for the next 10 years.
Okay, but how did you know you could be a choreographer? Because normally in the village, the choreographer is a really good dancer. So do you have a dance background, or did you?
My theater background. I had
Okay.
a theater background. So the shows that I did, they were choreographed, but I'm not a dancer per se, but I worked in theater and it was a director with musical theater. So to stage musical numbers, I was adept at. So
Okay.
yeah, I came in sort of a different way than most people do.
Yeah, because I've never really heard that before. Because normally the choreographer does have a dance
Yeah.
background, but yes, because of your theater experience, yes, I see what you mean now. Now, did you go to Eleuthera as choreographer or not yet?
No, I went as set designer, but what happened that season, that was the season of the Gulf War. So we started the season, and in January of that season, we were told we had to stay for a year. And what happened was our choreographer quit. Then we got a replacement choreographer in. They got fired. Another replacement choreographer came in. They got fired. So what happened was I put up my hand and said, well, I could put a show together. And I did. So I just automatically became a regisseur for the club because I put a show together at the end of the season.
And this was okay with your chief, I guess, Dirk.
He's the one who okayed the whole thing.
Okay.
And then my next season, he sent me to the Club Med 1.
All right, yeah.
Club Med 1, I didn't like it that much. It's not that it was terrible or anything. It just wasn't the feeling that I liked about the club. But I didn't say anything to anybody or whatever. But what Dirk had done is put me on there temporarily. And then I was dropped off in St. Lucia, and I was back in St. Lucia again, but I did my stage for choreographer.
Where did they send you for the stage?
At St. Lucia again.
Oh, the stage was there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And the guy, Mehdi Saror was his name. He was the chief of village. I thought he was a great chief of village for the fact that he really scared the crap out of you if you didn't do something, or if you were about to do something, you always made sure, you did it and whatever. But he sent me around to every service to learn how the service works. It had nothing to do with putting shows on, nothing to do with theater. And because he knew I knew that part of it. So he taught me to learn what every service in a club does, so that I can take into consideration, if I have this person, these are the times I can use them. They can't be there at these times, stuff like that.
Okay. That's unusual also, right?
Yeah, very unusual. But
Did,
I was lucky. Like anything else, you get into the situation, and if it's going the way you sort of think it's going, and you're like, okay, I'm good with this, you just go with it. And he did that, and he rewarded me, because at the end of that season, he sent me to Punta Cana, and the chief of village I had prior, Dirk Nuera, was at that village. So I went as a regisseur to the next village.
was there anyone from your stage, your choreographer stage, that we might know? Like anyone that?
No, because I was the only one.
Oh, really? You're
Yeah,
the
I
only
was
one on your
the only
stage?
one in that village. Yeah.
No
Because the
pressure.
girl who came in as a regisseur while I was doing the stage was Vanessa. I can't remember her last name, but this was her first season. So they had two first seasons sort of in that position. So I did a show at St. Lucia also, and she did her shows, and I learned a couple of her shows, so that the second season I wasn't stuck with no shows.
Okay. I'm gonna throw something at you here just to get your opinion. Okay. So I was one who liked the shows, hated rehearsal because why rehearsal was so late at night. So did any GOs encounter do like me, where if they saw you in the disco, they actually pretended they didn't know how to dance near you? They made sure that you saw them,
Not
and that you didn't ask them.
not so much until the very last season I did.
Oh, really? Okay.
Cancun, where I had two GOs who were in a number that I knew exactly where they were and whatnot. I knew the numbers that they were in a show, and it was my last couple of weeks in Cancun. I replaced myself in the shows, so that when I left, they had shows that they could still do. So I was standing at the back of the theater watching the show and saying to myself, where the hell are those two guys? Sure enough, I looked over, and the two of them were sitting at the bar. And I went up to them. I said, what are you guys doing here? And they said, but we're always here at this time. I said, what do you mean? They had skipped out on that number the entire season to go get a drink at the bar.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Dummy.
That was about the most of people trying to get out of the shows.
Okay. So you didn't have any tricks to convince someone that they'll
No,
like
not
it?
really. Because quite a few of the seasons we did Martinique. Surprisingly, I did a brand new show about 3 months before we were supposed to go to our next village. And I had a large cast, and we rehearsed late at night. And I found all the people who were in the show showed up with no complaints or anything. So I thought that's sort of my benchmark to show you that, as long as I keep everything interesting and they're doing stuff that they like to do, people showed up to rehearsal. Yeah.
But by the same token, were there GOs that presented themselves to you the second they arrived in the village and said, "I want to be in
Oh,
every show"?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Carol Flexen, who was in Sandpiper, right away we clicked, and right away I went, that girl is going to be on stage all the time. And she was. Quite a few people I met.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, do you recall like who some of your best dancers were?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Magali, I can't, her last name is Kiss now, because she married an ex-GO. She was fantastic. Carol Flexen, Lori O'Brien, they were great dance partners for me. But a lot of the shows that I did, even though they were choreographed, it was like doing a stage show in some ways, because I didn't necessarily, if they were dancing or whatnot, I didn't care if they danced in their own style. Because I felt that was the charm of those people being on stage.
Okay.
So I wasn't like a, very, very strict. I was strict with the shows and whatnot, but I let the people's personalities come out, because I thought that's what the GMs are here for. They want to see the personalities that they've been dealing with during the day.
Then in October 91, you spend about a year in Martinique.
In Martinique, yeah.
Okay.
Crazy year. Crazy year.
Yeah, they kind of had I did Martinique as well. And I remember very small stage and not so high off the ground, right? In Martinique.
Not high off the ground. The stage is the size of a postage stamp.
Yeah.
And we had somebody who remains nameless, who was trying to be a chief of village. They were there the first season, and it was a nightmare. It was just, that person was trying so hard to be a chief of village that the animation schedule was just non-stop. Do. We didn't get a break that winter at all. And then that person left after that season, and we did our own season where I was chief of animation. We did all kinds of new stuff, and I love the village. The people who were in it were great. The GMs were great. I love the fact there was no pool to do stuff around. You did stuff down at the ocean. It was magical. The second part of that season was just magical. I love that place. Just
was that the first time you became a chief of animation? That second
season?
Yeah,
that was the first time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And was there a stage for that or no?
No.
Okay.
You tend to grow, or at least then. I think now it's probably different, but
yeah,
back then you grew into the job because you were doing so much of it anyway.
Okay. And you think a season, or a year in Buccaneers Creek, Singles Village would tire you out a bit, but oh no, you went to Playa Blanca next.
Playa was
October
even
91.
more magical.
With Danny Stabielli. Yeah, Playa is that
really was
is that village, right?
Playa is just, it was the magical village because there was nowhere the GMs could go. There were no TVs in the rooms. So all the GMs were always out and about in the center of the village, and it was just great. God, that was such a good season. I wish every GO could have a season like that. And I'm sure almost all the GOs who've gone to Playa Blanca have said the same thing.
Yes, almost everyone. You're right. Yeah, that's for sure. And then Morea, Andrea Livingston. Okay, so now it looks like you wanted to take a break a bit and relax. So did you?
No, Morea? I didn't know what Morea would be into. They just kept offering me better places to go. So I went. I didn't know Andrea or whatever. I loved working with her. She was the best of the best for me. She was such an encouraging woman, because I got there and I was like, doesn't anybody around here rehearse or do anything? Well, it was so bloody hot there that you would finish the show at night and then you'd have to rehearsal at 11, and the look on everybody's face was just like, what now? Because it was so hot there. And again, no pool. The GMs were always in the center of the village. So you're rehearsing at night with all these gems at the bar, have you been to Morea?
No, I have not, sadly.
It was a kind of village where the bar overlooked the stage, and you would have all these GMs there sitting there getting drunk, and you're trying to rehearse something on stage. It was a tough season for that part of it, but other than that, it was absolutely beautiful. I got to go to so many different excursions there because of the pace. So sort of it added to the whole experience that she kept telling me, go on an excursion. Don't worry about it. We can't do a rehearsal tonight. It's going to be 40 degrees Celsius. Just have a good time. She was so good. She was such a cheap village. Yeah.
Actually rehearsal got called because of the temperature. Oh my God.
Well, you could see it with the GOs. You could see it starting to go down. And she was so much into how the GOs felt and keeping them up and such a positive woman. It's a shame that she's not around working at the club today, because she really was somebody she was a trailblazer. I loved her. She was great.
Okay. Wow. That sounds like you had a good time there.
It was fantastic. Yeah.
And then next village, you go stateside.
Oh,
You go to
Sandpiper.
Sandpiper, Howard McCarley.
Howard. Howard was great. He taught me to do, at the time, every other village, you did everything by pen and paper and then gave it to the secretary to fill in. Howard did everything on computer. And what was interesting about him, he taught me everything about Mac computers because he had one.
Yeah, this was 1992, right?
94.
Okay, 94. Okay.
Yeah, which again, the internet wasn't around. Computers, laptops weren't around. I remember buying a Mac laptop and online, or not online, but on the telephone from one of those magazines. Anyway, he taught me everything about Mac so that I was able to do programming and put it into the program, which was really great. But he gave me 100% creative freedom too, which was, for somebody like me, that was a gift in itself. And Andrea did the same thing, gave me 100% creative freedom to do whatever I wanted for the shows, and rarely ever had to step in and say, no, we should do this or that. And he also was really good. He taught us a number called the bells. I don't know if you ever heard of that one or not, but it's with 4 monks, and there's ropes that hang from the ceiling of the stage. And what happens is the monks go back and forth and back and forth. And next thing you know, they start pulling on the ropes, like they're pulling for the bells. And next thing you know, as you're doing that, the person on the end of the ropes is being lifted off the ground. It's a fantastic number. Nobody else did it, but Howard did. And it was a great cabaret number that nobody else did, but it was so good. It was from a show called Beyond the Fringe, which was back in the early 60s. The English guys did it. Little Dudley Moore and a couple of other people did it. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it was,
no, I've never seen this number.
oh, it was such a great number. And he was great Howard was terrific. For 2 years I was there with him. The teams we had were excellent. It was a big team because we had mini club, baby club, circus, all the sports and whatever. But that was a massive team to work with. For 2 years I was there too.
Yeah. Why did you want to spend 2 years there?
Well, he said after the first year, he said he was going to be there. And I had such a really solid year with him that I went, what the hell's the use of changing? So I might as well stay with him. So I did. And quite a few of the GOs did, surprisingly.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had another good year. So we had 2 good years with Howard.
And after those 2 years, I guess you're yearning for the singles life because Turquoise comes about.
I was yearning for the old Club Med again.
Okay.
So I went with Kevin Batt. Kevin had become a chief of village the season or 2 before. He did the Irish golf. It was an Irish golf.
Waterville.
Club.
Yeah, Waterville.
Right. He did Waterville, and then he did Punta Cana, and then he did Turquoise, which what he called the dream team. And that was with Hammer.
Hammer got married, I think, this
Hammer got married that season, yeah, and to Julie, and we had Hensel or Hendel. That's right.
Hendel, yeah.
Yeah,
well, I think Hansel came down for the wedding. Hansel Moss came down for the wedding.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, for Christmas that year, gave all the chiefs of service. He rented a plane and we flew to Columbus Island.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was our Christmas gift that year.
Oh man, I probably just missed that. Okay. I was at Columbus.
Were you at Columbus at that time?
Well, I was there in 97, 98, but I would have remembered that. So yeah, I must have just missed you guys.
We came in and just for a couple of days. And of course, Hammer knew a lot of the people there. Hammer had been around all over the place by then, but he was the chief of sports and doing his stage for chief of village. So he was excellent. he was so good on the microphone and so good with the GMs that Kevin didn't have to do that much. But Kevin was always there, always around doing some crazy thing.
He also let you be creative as much as you wanted to,
Oh,
right?
totally. But there was one time where there were two guys, Mike and another guy, I can't think of who, Mike Lemire and another guy who one crazy night they wanted to go into Kevin's house and knock on the door and wake him up to come out and go to the disco with them. And I told them that Kevin was there. That's all I did. I just went, oh no, Kevin's in his house. And they went and knocked him up. Well, all of a sudden, a week later, I get a call to come to Kevin's house. Mike got a call and this other guy got a call. And we're all sitting there. And he says, there's been a real problem in Punta Cana. And sorry to do this, but you three, we need you to move to Punta Cana. And we were like, what? We're in Turquoise having the times of our lives. We have to go to Punta Cana. And just then I saw a little tiny red light in a plant in his apartment. And sure enough, they were videotaping us. This was his retribution for waking him up that night. He was trying to get us to believe that we were going to have to pack everything up and move to Punta Cana. And he knew I didn't love Punta Cana as a village. And I was like, what? And then, of course, when I saw the light, I went, okay, so when do I leave? And that basically bambooed the two of them. And it's kind of ruined their little, whatchamacallit?
Animation passage. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Coup d'anime.
Exactly. But that was a very fun season. That was a good season.
Well, yeah, so fun. You went with him to Cancun in October 97.
Cancun,
right?
yeah, Cancun, a wild village too. It was when it was a singles village, and it was pretty run down at that point because we did that season and we had to, what did we have? Oh, we had to close that village because it was getting renovated at the end of that season. We only did one season to May, and we had to close. We had to close it up for renovations. So we were down one night to, I think, 50 GMs was the last night that we were there. And then after that, the village was empty. So it was very strange to be in a village when it's empty. The only other time I'd done that was when I was in Playa Blanca before all the guests came. But it's very strange to be in that village. But we had to close it to renovate it. And then I came back 6 months later when the renovation was almost finished to do the next season.
Okay. And you stay in Mexico next. You go to Sonora Bay.
Go to Sonora Bay because I did a show called Tommy, and Hammer was the chief of village, and he said, you know what, I'm in Sonora Bay. Can you come to Sonora Bay and put the show together for us? So I did. And that was the first time I ever did a show where I replaced myself with geos that were in that village. And boy, was that a hot village. Oh my God. The sand, you couldn't walk on the sand in your bare feet. You'd finish lunch and it would be so hot. All you could do was go back to your room. It was so hot. I'll never forget that. That was hotter than Maria.
What kind of show was Tommy?
Tommy was a rock opera, and
like The Who?
The Who, yeah.
Okay.
And I had seen it on Broadway in 1993, and I thought the music was great. I thought, what an interesting story. So what I did was I took it, edited it down, took out anything that was objectionable, and decided to do this show, Tommy. But when I was in Martinique, I did a show at the end of the season, and it was called Heroes. And I had these 4 panels, 4 pieces of set that were on casters that basically we projected slides. And if depending on where you moved the screens on stage, it broke up the pictures, and you were able to tell your story through dance or whatever with this set. So what I did was we did this show called Heroes in Martinique because none of the music for Tommy was, I couldn't get the music that was available for it. Then when I went to Playa Blanca, I did it for the first time in Playa Blanca, and I carried it on. I did it for about 6 seasons, I think, 6 or 7 seasons. It's a rock opera. Have you heard Tommy
Oh
before?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know the main songs
Well,
from
the
that.
Geos love the music. It was easy to it was very complicated production, but the Geos loved doing it because they were never off stage. They would go on stage, do their thing, leave the stage, change, be back on stage in a couple of minutes. So you felt like the 45 minutes of the show went by in 10 minutes. And the Geos loved it, the GMs loved it, and I at that point I was known for doing Tommy wherever I went.
Okay. I've never got the chance to see it, so I'm kind of bummed
No.
right now, you know.
Yeah, well, it was a good production. And every village it changed a bit depending on what the stage was like. I went back to Club Med in, oh gosh, 2012 to do open the village again just for 2 weeks. And I went back in 2019 to do a show. And both times, everywhere I went, there were people that I knew from way back when. And the first thing they mentioned was Tommy. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting.
You
Nice to know
went
that it's still, they still remember it.
which village did you go back to in
I
2019?
went back to Sandpiper both times
Okay.
and I realized how much it had changed.
And you must be bummed that it changed owners
Well,
too,
it's,
right?
not bummed so much as just it was such a different, I should never have gone because realistically, what was my time and it was never going to be the same. Because what I noticed when I finally got to my last season in Cancun after it had been renovated was the girl who replaced me. She was a dance instructor versus a choreographer. And that's when I knew, that's when it sort of hit me. I think this is the right time for me
So-
to move
Sorry,
on.
what's the difference?
Well, a difference was a dance instructor teaches GMs the samba
Oh,
and the rumba and the
okay.
cha and stuff like that. They're not known for putting shows together.
Okay.
I don't know if it ever stayed that way,
Mhm.
but I know in Cancun that's who I was replaced by. So I sort of went, oh, okay. Well, that's not my kind of thing to do. So I guess it's time to move on.
And that was the last season of
That was the
Cancun,
last,
like with
yeah,
Kevin Batt.
yeah, with Kevin Batt.
Okay. I do want to talk a bit about because you've had some pretty fascinating celebrity encounters in Turks. This is crazy to me that the Groundlings came and
Yep.
which is an improv group, and you were Jennifer Coolidge's scene partner.
She was my scene partner, and boy, can she curse.
This is crazy
She was
because
good.
who doesn't love Jennifer Coolidge, for the White Lotus and
But she
and
was nobody back then,
true, yeah,
and she
she
is
was
hysterically funny, so funny. But she swore, she swore like a sailor.
okay.
We would always get disqualified because she would start her improv, and next thing you know, she'd be swearing her head off. The audience would be killing themselves laughing, but we'd get disqualified because she swore.
Okay. So then I guess you see American Pie, you see Stifler's mom, and you're like, I did a scene with that person,
Well,
right?
I don't even know if American Pie was out by then. Maybe it was.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think it was because I think I would have recognized her or
Now,
somebody. But then again, with Club Med, you didn't go to movies. Cancun was the only village I was in where you could leave the village and go into town to go watch a movie. And I
well, you
remember that distinctly watching Titanic. I remember when
okay.
Titanic came out and it had Spanish subtitles.
Well, you could in Sandpiper, but you probably didn't have any time to do it, correct?
I don't think I think I might have seen one movie in Sandpiper. A lot of people got out of the village a lot. The only thing I did when I was in Sandpiper, I bought a car from my maid who cleaned my room. I got it for nothing. And my friend Nina Stein, who ran the boutique, we split the car. So she could go do her runs to Sam's Club and Costco and all this stuff. And I did it so that Howard was fantastic. That touring shows that came through Florida, if there was a touring show, he would let me off to go see a touring show. So I did that through the 2 years that I was there too.
Okay, and because of your theater background, you would probably be the only Geo that would recognize Joel Gray. So where did you
Well,
meet Joel Gray?
In Sandpiper, what most people don't realize, it's a golf club, and the golf club had their own people coming in and their own entertainment between the stuff that's happening at Club Med. So they would use the auditorium. And so these people would come in. I worked with Joel Gray, Mitzi Gaynor. Most people don't know any of these names, but Mitzi Gaynor. I grew up with the old Fred Astaire movies and the old MGM movies and stuff like that. And so I recognized all these people. I was having the time of my life. Mickey Rooney, Joel Gray, Mitzi Gaynor.
You know what's crazy? Sorry, excuse me. Mitzi
Yeah.
Gaynor and both Joel Gray, they're both 91 years old and still alive. Like, what are the odds? They're two people you
Exactly.
met are both 91 years old. Now,
Well,
Mickey Rooney was also in Sandpiper.
Yep, Mickey
Okay,
Rooney was
I
there.
can't see his name without thinking of Dana Carvey's like hilarious impression of Mickey Rooney. So when you met him, was he did he have a big ego or anything?
Huge ego.
Okay.
He thought he was on Broadway.
Okay.
So everything was like, why is there no champagne here? Why is there I need some drinks from the bar? And blah, blah, blah. He was a big drinker at the
Did he
time.
do I was the biggest star in the world? Like,
Yes,
does he
he
do it the way?
was.
Okay.
But again, I was starstruck too. So I mean, for me, and it had nothing to do with the club. That was the funniest part, because they used the theater. I would be in the theater. I would, host them in the theater, and I would always meet them. So it was great working with these
Well,
people.
sure. I mean, come on. Forget his ego. The man danced and acted with Judy Garland for God's sakes. I mean, they
But
were almost an
when
item,
I
right?
dealt with him, he was a fraction of what he was before.
Yeah, the
More
studio,
ego than anything, but yeah,
the studio wanted them to get married, him and Judy Garland. I mean,
yeah,
he's part of that golden era, right?
totally, totally. And Joel Gray, because of Cabaret, one of my favorite movies. So it was great meeting all these people, and that was another perk to being in Sandpiper.
Yeah, this one's hard to believe. You met a Club Med artist named of Michael Bublé before he was famous, right? Now,
He
is this
came
true?
to Cancun. Yeah, he came to Cancun. There was a guy, I don't remember his name, but he was from Vancouver. And he said, "Oh, you have guest artists come down." And out of the blue, he said, "Oh, yeah, I've got my friend who can sing and whatever." He came down for a week. And I remember thinking, this guy is a star. I don't know what the hell he's doing in Club Med. Now, a
You know,
couple of years later, boom, Michael Bublé. Yeah.
okay, you could tell right away.
You could tell right away. He was just such a crooner. He didn't sing anything. He even sang rock and roll, but the rock and roll that he sang, the way he sang it is like Michael Bublé. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I heard later that he did Brian Mulrooney's. I think one of his kids got married, and he was the singer, the wedding singer, and I think that's what finally gave him the push.
Yeah, which is great. I love seeing stuff like that. Just like Jennifer Coolidge. It's so satisfying to see somebody who you knew before they were anything.
Okay. Well, usually when I ask people, what are the things they miss the most, or the three things, I'm assuming that everything having to do with shows, right? You would miss.
I miss the shows. You know what? You probably hated rehearsals, but I enjoyed rehearsals because I don't think I was a tough choreographer. Like, I don't think I was a hard choreographer to deal with. That, yes, at the end, when all the pieces were put together, whatever, I was pretty tough because I had a vision and I knew what I wanted, and you guys couldn't see what I wanted, and whatever. But from an animation point, I loved the rehearsal process, because that's where I would gear things towards what you could do versus what is in my mind. I geared everything towards what the GOs were able to do versus saying, "Here, I need you to do this combination. It's got to be done exactly like this." I never dealt with stuff like that. I always did it geared it towards your personality. And I miss that. I miss the beaches, especially Eleuthera and Turquoise and Morea. the best beaches in the world. Miss the beaches so much, especially in the middle, being from Canada in the middle of winter. I miss the camaraderie with everybody. And, you have a team of 110 people and you're friends with 110 people. Miss that because you don't get it anywhere else. And I miss the fact that there's no TVs. It was really nice not having. I missed all of Friends and Seinfeld and Law and Order and all this other stuff that I've caught up on since I've been back, but I didn't miss anything. Not having a TV back in the 90s.
Okay, I just have to ask a quick question. Are you more Friends or Seinfeld?
Seinfeld.
Because I have a theory. Okay. Yeah, just one other thing. I just wished that rehearsal. I didn't like it because it was too late. I just said I was so logical. I thought I could learn better if this was earlier. That was my only critique of rehearsal. Like, you want me to memorize intricate dance steps at midnight? Me?
I look back and think, I don't know how they did it back in the, say, the 70s or the 80s. I really, because it was a different place back then too. I think with all the not having TVs in rooms and not, whatever. I think the GOs did a lot more partying and whatnot. So I don't know how they got rehearsals done late at night and ended up having a product that they could show people, except in a family village. I
Yeah.
don't know how they used to do it.
Yeah. Well, because I was tall and not a great dancer, they'd stick me at the back row, so I would actually learn during the production of the show over a few months. Then I would get promoted to the second from back row.
See, I would have found a job for you on stage, like Tommy. I would have put you as a panel.
Oh, bless you, bless your soul. Okay.
That's what I did, though. I picked certain parts for people because that's the speed that they ran at. And I thought, I can still take advantage of the person. Just give them something that they can do.
I really had to like it. Like, to this day, I always say my favorite dance number ever was Techno Can Can, 1996 in Columbus. I loved it from the second I saw it. I wanted to be in it. I begged to be in it, but that's the only number because I thought this is the greatest thing ever, Techno Can Can. And then I would actually teach it to other people when the choreographer was busy.
And that was an aerobics workout in itself.
Yes. Yeah, you remember it, right?
Like, talking about the can with the four
yes.
people.
Yeah. Then the chief would always do a curtain, like, okay, one more time, and then you'd come out again, right? Like,
especially after you've just done 12 hours of working at the
yeah. And then you got to get changed to go do casino
and
night.
Italian night at the buffet.
That's right.
I don't know how many times we'd be doing a show. I did one show called Time After Time, and it was big dance number after big dance number, and you had just enough time to get changed. You would dance off, change, and be dancing in at the beginning of the next number. And I can't remember how many times you'd be dancing with your partner and the partner would be swearing at you, saying, how could you do this on Italian night? Because you were just sucking up so much energy to get through the show, whatever, sweating like a pig. And it's true. You have eaten a big meal at Italian night and you're like, I don't know if I can move. So no.
Did you ever get mad at certain GOs or some GOs that like kind of screwed around during a show?
I would say I was pretty lucky. I didn't have people, when they went on stage, they did what I'd asked them to do. I didn't have many people that, or at least I didn't have any narcs that told me people were around on stage. Because of course I was in the shows. So how could I see what was going on? Though there was one time when I did Tommy, it was at the end of my last season in Cancun, and Kevin Batt played my cousin Kevin, ironically. And at this point, he decided on the last night he was going to shave my head. So he came out for this number and he had shaving cream and a razor with him. And what he didn't realize was I could see him out of the peripheral vision that I had. And I went, oh my God, what's he going to do? Because I was deaf and mute. I didn't say anything and I didn't do anything. I was sitting there and he came up to me behind me to do this thing with this shaving cream and a shaver. And I got up and started running around and bashing into walls and bashing into the other guys and to get away from him shaving my head. That was the only time.
Well, yeah, I asked the question because I spent 10 years in Club Med. The funniest thing I'd ever seen on stage was we had this massage geo that went on vacation for a week and a half. He got back. He was waiting in the wings to go on for his number. Yet the chief of reception convinced him that he was in the number on stage right now. But the guy's memory after being on vacation was a little hazy. And he kept convincing him. And sure enough, the GO went and pushed two girls to get between them because that was his spot, but it was in the next number. And I had a front row seat to this. I thought, oh my God, this is diabolical. I mean, it is so funny. So I was just curious if someone like that would have gotten in trouble with you for
Not, you know what? In the end, yes, they might have gotten in a bit of trouble, but for me, it was like slap the hand. Oops.
Don't do it again.
Again, you know. As I told you before, the two guys that missed that part of the show, probably for the whole season, I didn't realize it till the end. And all I could do was laugh. I couldn't get mad at them. What could I do?
All right. You have gone on record as saying your three favorite crazy signs are Pink Cadillac, Electric Slide, but who or what is a Billy Rubina?
Billy Rubina was in Punta Cana. It was a Dominican song.
Oh, okay.
And it was, I don't, just the moves for it and everything, I loved it. I don't know, out of all the crazy signs, that was one that I always loved. I don't know why. And if I ever hear that song again, I'd probably start doing the crazy sign.
Well, does that happen? Because that happens to me. Are you driving a car or in a grocery store and you hear a song from Club Med? Did you have to resist or stop yourself from dancing side to side and clapping? Does it happen to you?
I kind of never have to do that. That was one thing that when I left club, I went to a bat mitzvah this past weekend, and they had the DJ and they had two girls doing the moves. And somebody said, "Why don't you get up with them?" I said, "No, I did that for 10 years. I don't need
yeah.
I never get the urge to do crazy signs, unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Do you still dream about Club Med? Do you have a recurring dream like I do?
I do all the time.
Okay.
All the time. And it comes down to not having the show finished.
Oh God. So you have anxiety in this dream, right?
Yeah. Or people not showing up to I used to have horrible nightmares about people not showing up to entrance of restaurant.
Okay.
And the panic attack. When I was in Martinique, that was the biggest panic attack I had because that team was so unwieldy that you never knew if someone was, going to show up for whatever, because it was a very stretched out village too. So I was always panicked to go, four people that were supposed to be on entrance of restaurant, and the chief of village, I don't think he could have cared less what happened on stage, but God forbid you screwed up a entrance of restaurant, you'd be in doghouse for the next month.
Those are important too.
Okay. They are. I mean, it was a part of the job, but that was the only panic that I tended to have. The other stuff everybody would normally show up for or whatever. But entrances to the restaurant were always a panic attack.
Okay. Well, I also forgot that you did meet another celebrity at your first season, but you would be the only one again who would know who this was, James Lapine, who wrote Into the Woods, right?
Yeah.
So how the heck would you have recognized this person?
Have you done St. Lucia?
Yes.
Well, when you're in the reception there, you meet everybody who's coming in off the bus. And it just so happened I saw a picture of him. I've seen pictures of this guy before, and I ended up taking them to their room. And then I saw them at dinner, and I sat with them at dinner. Unfortunately, talked with him at dinner, and I said, "I'm a huge fan of Into the Woods and this, that, whatever." He could have cared less.
Oh, really?
Biggest snob. He was such a snob. And I honestly, it was probably because he had just gotten off doing some other show or something, and he was exhausted. And the last thing he wanted to do was talk about the show that he was doing. So I'm one of the rare people who even knew who the heck he was.
Well, yeah, this is 1990. It's before internet, obviously. And you just by chance saw a photo of this guy. So you could, and so guess what? Don't meet your heroes, right? Okay.
No, that's true. Don't meet your heroes. But though in the past, because I ran a theater here in Toronto here for the last 18 years, and I met a lot of people who were my idols, and I got to admit, every one of them came across as decent, nice people. I was lucky enough in that regard. So he was the only one that I've met so far that really kind of disappointed me. And if I ever met him again, I'd tell him.
Oh,
Said,
really? Okay.
pretty disappointing. Yeah. Once you hit a certain age, you don't care anymore.
James Gordon ruined your movie. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and these, yeah, so you said you ran a theater for 18 years. So now were these North American actors that came through?
North American, yeah.
Okay.
And a couple of Europeans and whatnot. But people like you probably wouldn't know any of these people. Oh, Betty Buckley, Shirley Jones, Debbie Reynolds, Patty LuPone.
Patty LuPone. You met
Yeah.
Patty LuPone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say this because you're the only person on this planet I could say this to. I like music of all kinds, and my iPod looks like a maniac. I've got heavy metal, classical music. Anyway, I say the best song ever sung, period, is Patti LuPone, Evita, and I'm talking about when she was on Broadway. I forget what year it was, obviously 80s. The best song ever sung is Patti LuPone's Evita. If you've never heard it, get it, turn off all the lights and light some candles because that'll just make the experience even more. Now, have you heard this song?
She's done. Oh, of course. Have I heard this song?
Okay. Well, yeah, I just had to check, but am I, but you know what I'm saying. And this is coming from a guy like me, a typical jock guy, that this song, when I hear it, still gives me goosebumps to this day when she hits that note,
She was not a disappointment in the least. And she was one of those people that told you exactly what she thought. And I thought that's the kind of person I would strive to be. She was quite amazing. And I met her twice, actually, 2 different times that I did shows with her. But also Andrea Martin. I did a show with Andrea Martin.
Oh.
I went on tour with it and then came back. She was a riot to work with. Martin Short.
Oh, you work with Martin Short?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah. They were great. Again, experiences where they did not disappoint. And SCTV is one of the all-time best shows that have ever been on television. So, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now you just got me thinking of Patti LuPone when she was on Will and Grace. Anyway, okay. All right. Well, wow. I don't know what else to ask you. Are we I know we mentioned a lot of the GOs and the chiefs of villages you like working for. Are we leaving anyone out? Is there anyone else that comes
great people like Scott Duncan?
Okay.
Scott was one of the best GOs I have ever met. He was great with the GMs, great land sports guy, terrific in the shows. People like him, John Kiss. John Kiss was a water ski GO. Great guy. Couldn't dance for his life. But you know what? He was in every single show, and I always congratulated him because he gave his 100% every show he did. And he was the best example of somebody who did not have any talent whatsoever except for water skiing. He was really good at water skiing, but would show up 100% to do whatever show he was in. And even though he kind of sucked at it, he still was, gave his 100%. God, I've got so many. Lars Dembeck, who was a really great guy for animation and in sailing. Glendan Robertson.
GA.
From Mini Club.
Yeah, GA. Yeah.
Jim Henry from Mini Club. Oh yeah, there's so many people.
I know it's hard to mention everyone. I was just curious.
Nina Stein, who ran the boutique. She's a really good friend of mine. Lisa, who ran a boutique, who always says Murr. Can't think of her last name. Lisa Peterson, I think is her name. Murr. She always would go Murr.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Anyone ask why?
I don't know. I don't know. I always used to think it was Monty Python.
Okay.
So that from the Holy Grail when they say,
we'll have to locate her and have her on. Yeah. So now I'm obsessed with this. Okay.
I work with some really great people that I hope to God that they're out there in the world being great, doing whatever they're doing, because honestly, they made my time at Club Med so worthwhile. And that is the best thing about Facebook, I've got to say.
Yes.
It keeping in touch with the people that you worked with 30, like, I mean, for me, it's 30 some odd years ago that I started, and I'm still in touch with these people. Thank God, through Facebook, which is great.
Yeah, and of all your seasons, have you ever thought, was there one that stands out, or three? Like I ask people
Oh
if they had
yeah.
a magical season. That's one where it was just simply magical, but not everyone feels the same way as me. So I was just curious if
Playa Blanca for sure was magical beyond belief. Even when crap happened, yeah, you just went, whatever, move on. Sandpiper was really fun. Martinique was fun in a different way, in a mature way, let's say. You were dealing with real adults in Martinique. And more than any other village, I felt like Martinique, you were dealing with adults. Turks and Caicos has its own charms. I mean, with a chief of village like Kevin Batt, you can't go wrong in the fact that when he was chief of village, he used to do so much great stuff for the team. He would charter a boat, and one afternoon take all the chiefs of services out on a boat and have our chief of service meeting on the boat. Stuff like that. He was great for doing stuff. He did his when the chiefs of villages switch at the end of a season, he
yes,
did his by skydiving
okay.
at Turquoise. Of course, he tried to get me to go skydiving with him, and of course, I said no. No, thank you. I'm better on land.
Well, am I forgetting to ask you anything before I let you go? Like
Think so.
I know we covered a heck of a lot here.
I don't know, but there quite a few geos inspired me and kept me going for over the years. And people like Hammer were total inspiration to always strive for whatever he had going for him, because that guy, he's a snake charmer in the best way possible. He can charm anybody because he's just got that knack for people. And I'm glad that he's working in HR and whatnot for Club Med now, because he was a great guy. He was a fantastic guy to deal with. I don't think Howard's working there anymore.
No, he left not long ago, but yeah,
He's finally
he came.
retired.
Yeah, yeah. I had him on
Uh,
to the podcast. Yeah.
yes, and I heard his podcast too. Other than that, I can't think of anything else. I would say I still look back at those 10 years as being the 10 best years I've had in my life. That nothing will ever compare. And as you know, obviously, the further you get away from it, the less bad memory of anything you had is there, and only the good memories remain.
You sound like me. I always say that the best 10 years of my life, and over time, yes, you only remember the good stuff. Like we're like
It,
two peas in a pod. I find.
yeah, very much. But it has to. I mean, I loved Club Med the time that I was there. I'm glad I did it the times that I was there. I don't think I would be able to do it anymore, just because having partially because I think my job is almost obsolete for Club Med, because I think that they're moving in a different direction, which is fine. I mean, everything changes and whatever, but I think having a TV in a room changes what animation is in a village too. Because the people, finished their dinner and said, no, I think I'm just going to go back to my room and watch TV instead of coming out and participating in a show. Unless it's circus, which is another thing that's taken over Club Meds. I think circus has become the number one cornerstone of animation for most villages.
And with these 10 years, you sound like you don't have any regrets. You wouldn't have changed a thing, correct?
No, I wouldn't have changed a thing, except maybe if I had stayed, I would have wanted to go over to the European zone.
Okay.
And God knows if that would have happened or not. But I'm so thankful that I got to do villages like Eleuthera, which doesn't exist anymore, St. Lucia, which doesn't exist anymore, Sonora Bay doesn't exist anymore, Playa Blanca doesn't exist, Morea, like all those places that I was in, a lot of them don't exist anymore, and I'm thrilled I got to spend 6 months or a year of my life in some of these places that left such an indelible impression on me.
Well, I think that's a perfect spot to end the interview, sir.
Good.
I
Okay.
really want to thank you, Graham, for
No
sharing your
problem.
story. That was fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it, and great speaking to you. And one day I'll return to Club Med in some way or another, but
Yeah, just don't ask me to do the show, okay?
no,
Okay,
exactly.
okay. Everyone, that was Graham Maxwell from Toronto, Canada, and we will see you all next week with another installment. Here's where we say goodbye to everyone, Graham, listening.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.